Hey everybody, welcome back to Deep Proof Cooking. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make probably my most favorite dessert. I'm talking about bread pudding. Now this is something that my nan would make for me and my siblings when we were all kids, and we absolutely loved it. I still love it, and we would just gobble it up so quickly. Now what my nan would do is she would just get like a plain loaf of white bread, cube that up, let it go stale, and that's what she would make the bread pudding with, which is like the classic way to do it, and it works fine that way. But I wanted to change it around a little bit, and I wanted to show you how to make a loaf of bread in this video too. So I'm going to do a nice, simple, but sweet bread. I'm going to show you how to make a soda bread with raisins and cinnamon in it. I think you'll really, really like how this turns out. So without any further ado, why don't we get into it? Okay, so let's get making this cinnamon raisin soda bread. The recipe I got for this is from Imperial Sugar. Now what you're going to want to do is start off with a larger mixing bowl like the one I have here. And into the mixing bowl, add in a half cup of white granulated sugar. And then you're going to want to get 2 large eggs and crack those in as well. So drop the first one in and then the second one, and pick out any shells if you put some in like me. I can't go a single time without putting some shells in, it seems like. And then get your trusty whisk and whisk this until it's combined. And then you're going to want to add in 2.5 cups of buttermilk. Again, get your trusty whisk and give this a whisking until it's combined. Once it is combined, go get yourself some raisins. Now you can use 1.5 to 2 cups. I tend to go on the heavier side with the raisins, so I'm using 2 cups. Pour them in, and once again, get your whisk and just give them a little whisking so that it's combined. Once that's done, set this aside for a moment because now we're going to work on the dry ingredients. Now get yourself another mixing bowl and don't drop it like I almost did, and add in 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Next in is 2 2/3 cups of whole wheat flour, and then 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, pour that in, and then 1 teaspoon of baking soda, again pour that in. Then 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, and wouldn't you know it, get your trusty whisk and whisk this all together until it's combined. Now, fairly straightforward, get your wet ingredients like I have here, and pour them in with the dry ingredients, very carefully, making sure not to spill them. And then get yourself a wooden spoon and start mixing this together. Now what I'm going to do is mix this with the wooden spoon until there's not any dry flour left over. Basically just mixing it until it's shaggy and there's no dry flour left off. And then I'm going to just start kneading it in the bowl with my hands because that's far more efficient. Now one thing that I noticed with this recipe from Imperial Sugar is it's pretty hydrated and really, really sticky of a dough. Like you can see here, it's really sticking to my hands. So what I'm going to do is flour my work surface, and I'm going to knead this for a little bit with some flour to just kind of make it a little less wet. So pour the dough out onto your floured work surface, just carefully, there we go. And then I'm going to put some all-purpose flour, just sprinkle some on top. And then I would suggest kneading this for 2 to 3 minutes back and forth on the flour. And you can re-up the flour a little bit on top because, like I said, it is pretty hydrated. So you don't want it this sticky, you want it a little bit less sticky. So just knead it back and forth, 2 to 3 minutes should be really all you need with a couple of hits of flour. As you can see, that's what I've done. Once you've done that, go get yourself a baking sheet and spray it down with some cooking spray. Now what I'm going to do actually is give it one more little bit of a kneading just to dry out the dough just a little bit more. Give it another half a minute of kneading, and then from there I'm going to put it onto my baking sheet. So carefully transport it. There we go, Will, very nice. There we go, onto the baking sheet. Now you're going to want to press this out until it's about like a 1/2 inch thick, and then go get your knife and cut an X through it. Now I'm using a hunting knife because I still don't have an actual razor blade like a bread lame. So I'm using a hunting knife because it's pretty sharp and it works good. From there, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake this for anywhere from 50 to 60 minutes until it's risen and golden brown like that. Look at that. Look how big it is first off, but look at how gorgeous that looks. That is like a perfect, iconic looking soda bread. So I'm going to let this cool down for a couple of hours on a wire rack because you really want it to cool down before you use it. Which is funny because then after we cut it up, we're going to bake it a little bit more to dry it out. But we'll get into that for a second. As you can see, it's super hot. I just burned my hand a little bit. But seriously, look how gorgeous that is. That is just a gorgeous looking soda bread. It is exactly what I was looking for, and I think this is going to go great in a bread pudding. So after about 2.5 hours, it's cooled down enough for me to cut into this, but let's just admire this for one more quick second because I'm just super pumped at how this turned out. So for bread pudding, we need to cut this into cubes. Now normally, I think I said in the intro, you use stale bread. Hold on, one more shot of the bread here. Look at that, look how gorgeous that is, and let me tell you how good it smells. So anyways, back to cutting this up. Now I think I said in the intro, normally for bread pudding, you would use day-old, staler bread. But this was freshly baked, so we're going to have to do something about that. So the plan is this, cut it into cubes, and then I'm putting it on a baking sheet off to the side, as you can see, and I'm going to throw it in an oven set at 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake it for about 15 minutes to dry it out. Now you can just let it sit out for the day and stale up if you want, but if you want to make bread pudding the same day, throw it in an oven at 350 degrees for about 15-20 minutes to dry it out. That's what you want. And while the bread is staling up a bit, let's make the actual mixture for the bread pudding. Start off with 1 cup of white granulated sugar into a mixing bowl, and then you're going to want to use 5, yes, that's right, 5 large eggs. Pour them in with the sugar. And look at that, I didn't get a single eggshell in this time. I'm feeling really good about that. So break up the yolks and whisk this all together until it's combined. Once that is all combined together, you're going to want to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla paste or vanilla extract, whatever you want to use, either one is fine, and then add in 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. We're going to make this super cinnamony. And then add in a tablespoon of freshly ground nutmeg or the dried stuff if you want, either or is fine. And once again, whisk this all together. And then you're going to want to add in 4 cups of whole milk. You want a lot of liquid here because the bread is going to soak this up. Again, whisk this to combine, and then let's go get the bread. So let's set this aside for a moment, and here we go. There is the bread that's dried out a bit. It really doesn't look that different on the camera, but I can tell you it's a lot harder and it definitely feels stale. So get yourself a 13 by 9 inch baking pan like I have here. This is my lasagna pan I like to use. And just start filling it up with the bread cubes. Now, the soda bread that I made actually was too much. I had, a few pieces left over. So, you can use that for whatever you want. But really, you want to make sure that the baking tin is pretty jam-packed full of bread cubes. Like as you can see that I've done, it's pretty jam-packed in there. And then I'm going to throw some more raisins in. Now I know there's raisins in the bread, but I think a few extra raisins will really do this justice. So I'm going to use like a half a cup of raisins and then just start pouring in the actual mixture. Now you want to make sure you hit all of the bread cubes a little bit with the actual mixture because it's going to soak it all up, but you want to make sure it's all a little bit moist. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hit it with a nice topping of honey on the top. Hey, we're going all in on the sweetness here. This is going to be awesome. Now what you want to do is let this soak for about 15 minutes to really soak up the mixture, which is the perfect amount of time to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it is preheated, pop this in the oven and bake it for about 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on the efficiency of your oven, until it comes out looking like that. Oh my God, look how good that looks. Now as you can see, the bread has really soaked in all of that mixture and it looks like the bread looks swollen, but like that's exactly what you're looking for. Oh my God, this looks so good. And let me tell you, the aromas coming off of this are just amazing smelling. Now what I'm gonna do is let this cool down for about 10 minutes before I cut into it. Now here we go, time for a taste test. So I'm gonna cut into it, but surprise, surprise, I am not going to take a corner piece, which is, not what I usually do. I usually go with the corner pieces, but I figured, hey, let's try something else. So let's go with a middle piece this time. So as you can see, it's all nice and clumped together and it's all nice and gooey. That's what you're looking for. That's a bread pudding in general. If you can see that there, it's pretty gooey, and that's a bread pudding, man. That's it. So let's go in for the taste test. Oh yeah. That is so good. It is rich and sweet and nice and like gooey, which, is just perfect. And the raisins in it just complement the flavor so well. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say something bold here. And I'm going to say this is better than the bread pudding my nan used to make. And you know what? She would just use plain white bread, which is fine. If you want to do that, you certainly don't have to make the soda bread that I did. You can just use plain old white bread, and that's fine. But this was just so good, like at a whole nother level. I can't stress this enough how really just delicious this was. And it was just super easy to make too. Now it would be even easier if you want to use just, store-bought white bread, which is fine to do. But if you want to up your game a little bit, just make it a little bit better, try making that soda bread that I did, because it just added a whole nother level to it. Oh man, I really loved how this turned out, and I think you would too. But like always, that's the end of the episode. I hope you liked what you saw here today. If you did, why don't you drop me a comment, like the video, or even subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching Idiot Proof Cooking. We'll see you again soon.